This is my chance to dig deep on the real history of Latinos. We're gonna fill in the parts of our history that were lost, all the way from the ancient Olmecs
Latinos were here long before the United States existed.
to the Latinos who helped build this great nation.
With the strike and with the boycott, we were trying to get farm workers basic human rights.
That's a lot of ground to cover, but don't worry, because I got you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this very special virtual event hosted by WXXI Public Media. I'm Chris Hastings, the president and CEO of WXXI, and it is such a pleasure to spend time with all of you as we dive into an incredible conversation about storytelling, history, and creativity. Today, we are here to celebrate Voces American Historia, the Untold History of Latinos, a powerful series from PBS, co-produced by Latino Public Broadcasting, that shines a well-deserved spotlight on the vibrant and complex history of Latinos in America. This series doesn't just recount the past, it reframes it, it elevates the voices and stories that have gone too often unheard. I am particularly thrilled to welcome two extraordinary talents who brought the series to life. First, we have Ben DeJesus, a brilliant director whose creative vision has helped shape this remarkable project. And I have to tell you personally, he is a personal friend of mine. And so I'm super, super excited to be able to bring Ben here to Rochester. I've known him for years and just so thankful to be here. And joining Ben is the amazing John Leguizamo, creator, host, driving force behind American Historia. As a longtime fan personally, and I actually produced a short about John years ago, from his dynamic stage performances to his thought-provoking films, I am in awe of how he continues to use his voice and talent to inspire, educate, and entertain. This afternoon, Ben and John will take us behind the scenes of this groundbreaking series, and they've been working on it for years, I know, sharing how it all came together and what they've learned along the way and what it means to give these untold stories the platform they deserve. Now, I'm also pleased to introduce you, because I'm not moderating, two moderators from Rochester. Isaiah Santiago is a 20-year-old political science junior at St. John Fisher University. Isaiah Santiago is a dedicated advocate for youth in Rochester, New York, focused on combating youth violence, mental health, founder of We Got This. Isaiah leads an organization that steers at-risk youth toward positive outlets like arts and music, fostering creativity and mentorship. Also joining Isaiah is Stephanie Paredes, a bilingual Afro-Dominican dynamic leader leveraging over 2 decades of experience to amplify voices, build inclusive communities, and drive systematic change. With a Bachelor of Arts in Broadcast Communications and Theaters, and forthcoming Master of Science, she's dynamic. Master of Science in Human Development from University of Rochester. Stephanie blends creativity and strategy to inspire transformative in organization and communities alike. That is a lot. You guys are dynamic, and I just want to say to you, thank you for moderating this conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to the both of you to interview John and Ben.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
We are excited to be on today, and we are excited to cover the documentary 3-part series that we are covering today.
Hello, everyone. Bienvenidos a todos, everyone far and wide joining us. It is an absolute honor to be here with all of you here today. I have the pleasure of introducing John Leguizamo, who is a true pioneer in every sense. John is a dynamic force in the world of entertainment, actor, writer, producer, and so much more. He has a career that spans film, television, theater, and is constantly and unapologetically shattering boundaries and defies expectations. And we are so excited to have him here today. He has over 75 film credits, including iconic roles in John Wick 2, Ice Age, and Encanto, powerful advocate for the Latino culture and mainstream media, and what I love to say, a fearless champion for social change, continues to break new ground. And I'm so excited to welcome you, John, and Isaiah. Tell us a little bit about Ben.
Yeah, I have the honor of introducing Ben DeJesus, who is the director of the three-part series that we'll be covering today. Ben DeJesus is an Emmy and Tony-nominated director, producer, writer, and three-time Imagen Award winner with over 15 years of experience in the U.S., covering multicultural, Latinx, and youth markets. Alongside his partner is John Leguizamo, where they co-founded their production company, carving out a unique niche with a diverse slate of television, documentaries, nonfiction films, and digital content. In the chat, if you guys can welcome Ben and John, please welcome them, give them a hand clap. We are excited to have them here. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you for having us. It's so exciting.
Definitely.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So before we dive in, we want to take a little view into the clip of American Historia, the Untold Story of Latinos, where you invite viewers on an unforgettable journey. I know that it was for me and Isaiah through the hidden and celebrated chapters of Latino history. So this spans from ancient empires to the vibrant present day. And you all do such an amazing job of captivating and uncovering stories from both famous and forgotten people in our history. And so we're going to take a moment to immerse ourselves in this incredible clip.
You know, when I was growing up in Jackson Heights, Queens, I learned the same history that they taught kids all over America. That George Washington cut down his cherry tree, that Ben Franklin flew his kite, and Abe was honest. Guess what was missing? Us, the Latino contributions to this country.
People tend to forget that Latinos were here long before the United States existed.
Most of the history we're still taught is from the point of view of the conquistadors who tried to wipe out any trace of advanced indigenous cultures to justify their massive theft of our New World wealth.
The sophistication in the arts, in architecture of these massive cities that were bigger than European cities.
They invented life-saving medical practices. They also calculated the movements of the planets, and they wrote it all down in their sacred books.
Descubrimos un túnel que nos conduce hasta el frente del templo de la serpiente emplumada.
¿Pero es peligroso o qué?
Es muy peligroso,
¿Por qué?
pero no puedes tocar las paredes, que es muy venenoso.
It's as epic as any of the great wonders you've learned about in history class.
And this is really important for Latinos to know and for other people to know about Latino roots.
Mexican and Mexican-American people were lynched at rates similar to the rates that Black people were lynched.
When we talk about executions, it's not like we have to document them because the Rangers would take pictures.
We were forbidden to speak Spanish, and for every word of Spanish that you spoke, we were hit with a bat.
We were not supposed to have any political rights. The idea of being a peon was you take it, and we didn't take it. We didn't accept it.
You can't have a history book about the United States without considering the histories of all of the Latino communities.
Guy Gabaldon, when he served on Saipan, captured by himself between 1,300 and 1,500 enemy soldiers.
We don't just make contributions to U.S. history. We have changed U.S. history.
The Young Lords, they drafted the first known patient Bill of Rights. And these were kids,
I would have never thought of the Young Lords would have created this, yeah.
We come from women who have done this before us, and we stand and we draw our strength from them.
Sí, se puede. The most important thing I think that we have to do is make people understand that we are one human race. And that way we can stop discrimination and stop domination. Sí se puede.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Goosebumps all over again.
Yeah. Me too. I felt my hair stand in the back of my neck.
We did that, John. We did that.
Oh,
you did it. You did it. Sí se puede. Sí se pudo. Yeah, it's out there now, right?
Lo hicimos.
Exactly. Listen, I want to start us off with, how did you both come together for this project? Let's think about that first time you were both meeting. Like, walk us through that first time when we're thinking about you, Ben and John in a room discussing this project. What happened?
Yeah, I'll jump in, John. I got called by one of our mutual business partners at the time. His name is David Chittau. He called me to do some YouTube comedy videos that were kind of like parodies of viral videos at the time. This is going back about 14 years. And I show up at John's house, and he didn't know at the time. It took a while for me to let him know how much of a hero he was to me. But we hit it off that day. We ended up exchanging contact information. And then I found out that he was doing rehearsals for his first one-man show on Broadway in 10 years. And I just said, hey, John, you mind if I show up to one of your rehearsals and shoot a little behind the scenes? And I showed up that first day, and I realized, wow, there's a documentary here. And this was a Ghetto Clown. So at the time I said, you know, here I have a treatment for you guys. Maybe you guys will let me kind of go along for the ride. And him and his director at the time, Fisher Stevens, said yes. And I pretty much never stopped showing up. And that was the first PBS documentary that I did with John, Tales from a Ghetto Clown.
Love that so much. So when you both think about your own experiences with your own identities, how has that shaped your decision to bring this particular story to life on the screen? Because a lot of it is poured, you know, you pour into it behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, but that's got to sit different when you think about your own identity and exploring that.
Well, you know, it's just so crazy because we're such a huge population in the United States, 20% of the population. And we're so invisible. We're still so invisible. And, you know, growing up as a young man and never seeing yourself represented, you just always felt so left out. You always felt like you were overlooked, you know? And my whole mission in my life was to put us on the map, was to put us out there. And then when I started reading this history, because I started reading it, a lot of the history was to get my son to feel empowered about himself, to feel important, to feel like that he mattered. And when I started reading this stuff, it was like, I don't know, it hit me like the stages of grief, rage, sadness. You know, you go through all these feelings when you start to realize we helped build this country. We helped build all the infrastructure from the west, from the Mississippi to the west. You know, the Traqueros came and built the railroad tracks, but we never knew that. We had all these great women activists in the late 1800s, early 1900s. We've been building this country, and without this information, it does us such a disservice, and it does a disservice to America because in history textbooks are not real; they're not complete.
Yeah, and John, I think that you're right on the path of where we want to go to next, because what's important, certainly with the younger generation and new generation, that's our tomorrow, and truly our today and our tomorrow, is that they know who they are, they know the culture, and they understand who they are. Because if they don't know who they are, it's easy for social media, it's easy for statistics, it's easy for other people to tell them who they are, who's their identity. And what I saw in this documentary, the 3-part series, is an opportunity to teach younger Latinos and others who they are and the history of who they are and the amazing rich culture that we have as Latinos and Afro-Latinos and different Latinos. There's so many different cultures that we have inside of the race, you know, that we all agree with. And so my question to you is, why do you think it's important for young Latinos and others to learn about the history presented in this documentary, especially from a perspective that challenges the traditional lens?
Well, you know, knowing your contributions to the making of this country where you don't see it anywhere. You know, Latin history was banned in Arizona for 10 years. Texas teachers are mostly not allowed, even though they're in predominantly Latino neighborhoods and schools, to teach Latin history, but one day or a couple of days of the year. Our history was erased. Without that knowledge, you don't know your own power. You don't know how far you can reach, because you need to see that in history to understand how far you can go. When you understand that you had all these activists, you had all these scientists who invented the color TV, the birth control pill, sorry, but important. The electric brake, the artificial heart. I mean, these are great inventions that never get talked about in history textbooks. The first European language spoken in America was not English, was Spanish. These are important things to know, that we fought in the American Revolution. 10,000 unknown Latino patriots fought in the American Revolution. We funded the American Revolution. Imagine knowing that as a kid, that we gave $2 million from Cuba, Mexico, and Spain to George Washington. We are the sons and daughters of the American Revolution. Do you see yourself, if you knew that, and how others would see us? It changes the whole paradigm.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great quote that John has said before, and I love to use it. I re-quote you all the time, John, which is, you know, can you imagine how people would look at us if they knew the incredible contributions that we made to this country? And then more importantly, can you imagine how we would look at ourselves? And I mean, I think that's what it's all about. It's like, if you don't know your power or the greatness that you come from, you're already limiting your potential of what's possible in your life and in your community. So I think this is all part of the incredible work that John's been doing. He's done it on stage for many, many years. And he started doing this show, Latin History for Morons. I think that was a big catalyst for this show and for other kind of opportunities to celebrate our culture in a more meaningful way and in a way that reaches the zeitgeist and pop culture.
Absolutely. And you know, John, I was on the phone with my father this morning, and that's exactly what he said. He said John was able to show us that we can be up there too, that we can be on the screen. And I'm a little bit younger. I'm 20 years old, you know, and so I was able to experience the Ice Ages and the Puss in Boots and the, you know, those movies that you were a part of, and you gave us representation, which is always important. And looking at this documentary and looking at your history, John, one thing that you have been able to do is inspire other people, and certainly young people like myself, to know that they can do it too. And like you just said, when it comes back to the documentary, is that in the history with the people that we are able to see, who are trailblazers, who are change makers, it makes us understand that this is my history. These are my people, and I'm also a trailblazer. I'm also a change maker. And so to see that, and definitely to see that in this documentary, has been able to inspire many, and the resilience of our people, going all the way back to the indigenous, the Tainos, who were really resilient people. They have been able to inspire us. And in the beginning of the documentary, you really focused in on the Tainos and our indigenous people of the land. And so my question to you is, in what ways does a documentary highlight the resilience and cultural significance of the Tainos? And how does it correct the historical inaccuracies imposed by the current perspective?
Well, I mean, it's good to understand when you see the show. We broke it into three parts. The first part is our empires: Taino, Inca, Maya, Aztec, and the great people we came from. The largest empires of the time. They were bigger than European, than Rome. We had like 30 million people, the Aztecs, 40 million in Peru, and the Incas. I mean, these were massive empires. So you start to understand that we Latin people, we have such a superpower because we come from one of the greatest devastation. The conquest was one of the most brutal events in the history of the world. We were 100 million people in the Americas. 95% of us disappeared within 100 years. That's 95% of us disappeared. There are only, 5 million are left.
Wow.
The diseases, obviously. But these were great empires, and then our religion was destroyed. Our books were burned. Our libraries were burned. People who were our historians, our teachers, our philosophers were murdered, because you have to destroy a culture in order to take advantage of it. But look at us now. I mean, we contribute $3.2 trillion to the GDP every year. That's huge. I mean, if we were our own country, we'd be the 5th largest economy in the world, bigger than India, bigger than France, bigger than England, bigger than Brazil. And that's only in America. I'm not talking about all of Latin America. But being Latino is such an incredible superpower.
Yeah.
Exactly. And just to add to that, I think it's important that we recognize our power. And then the other thing is that it's not just about like taking at the expense of another culture. This is not what we're trying to do. This is very much an inclusive documentary. It's about celebrating our culture alongside other cultures. So this is meant to be not just for Latino audiences. This is meant to be for all audiences. And so we're really excited and really thankful and grateful for the reception that the film has already received. It's been incredible.
Yeah, and like you said, in a way that's truthful. For a long time, the history has been hidden. And so to be able to really inspire, and it's important that young people are able to see that. And I know that there's some college students who's currently on the Zoom watching the webinar today. And so I hope that they are inspired, by the documentary, and also by the track record and what you guys have been able to create in an authentic way and in a truthful way.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I love that because I want to be able to connect Voces with our local history here. Dolores Huerta was inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame here in Seneca Falls in 1993. Justice Sonia Sotomayor was honored in 2019. Sylvia Mendez and her children's book, Separate is Never Equal, was turned into a play locally that was produced by the Rochester Latino Theater Company and written by Annette Ramos and Don Bartalo. And I got to meet all these people, and I tell you, it was incredibly profound to watch living, walking history and just be able to have a moment and share and say, you have impacted my life. You don't know me from una cualquiera de la calle, but I just want you to know that, you know, it's that resounding resilience that we're able to really share with those who have come before us, you know, the shoulders that we stand on with them. I know what that felt like to me. And y'all interviewed Dolores Huerta, Edward James Olmos, Young Lord's co-founder Miguel Melendez, amongst others. There's a lot of heavy hitters in this three-part series. So, John, as you interview these influential figures within the community, what emotions or revelations surface for you, and how do they shape that final narrative?
Well, I mean, the whole thing is always emotional. I don't know why. I guess because you're so invisible and unseen, and you in your own life, in your own country. And then when you see these heroes and you meet them, and they understand your struggle, and I understand their struggle. You know, because it's the same struggle, and to see them standing there and proud and all this knowledge, they're knowledge holders, you know. And me and Ben, our plan was to make sure that this could hold water in court. You know, like Latinos were on trial, so we got testimonies, we had evidence. You know, it's so important to have people, you know, professors and experts and archaeologists, and quotes. Quotes are very important because that's testimony of what happened. So we got great actors like, you know, America Ferrera and Rosario Dawson, Benjamin Bratt to voice the real life quotes from the history.
Yeah. Incredible. And one other thing that I would add is that, you know, everything that's in the film, and it's a lot, and imagine how much we couldn't fit into the film, but the amount that we did fit in the film, everything is triple sourced and verified. Like, you know, from PBS, it's like you can't put something on air just because, right? It needs to be identified, verified, and sourced triple time. So we did all of that. We did a lot of the work. When you look at the images that we created to represent the Taínos, because obviously there aren't photographs from 500 years ago, we were very careful down to the kinds of feathers they would have and the paint that they would have on their faces. And if something wasn't right, our historical advisors would step in and basically say, no, we have to make this accurate. So like John said, like this stands the test of evidence and court, and we stand by it 100%.
And I love that you say that, because a lot of folks, you can't just put something on there and be like, I thought it was a good idea, so I'm just going to put that out there. So we appreciate that you took the time and effort to do that, because so many times we're portrayed in these narrow, stereotypical ways in the media. So Ben, tell us a little bit more about challenging, as you think about the visual perspective of the film. It's very rich and very complex. The visuals of this is just spot on. So you gave an example of the Taínos and the paint, you know, because things have to be a specific color, specific shape, because all of those things mean something to our community. Talk to us a little bit more about that, especially your connection with thinking about your historical experts that you worked with and stuff like that on the film to get things exactly the way it should be.
Sure. Well, you know, John has taught me over the years that when you go out to do a project, you say a kind of an outrageous thesis, right? You come out with a big statement and then you set out to prove it. And that's really been the driving force in a lot of my work. So thank you, John, for that, because we set out with a thesis that was kind of outrageous, which is we're going to tell the perspective of history from the point of view of the conquered versus maybe what the history books that have been around for 500 years. Yes, some of those are accepted as fact, but guess what? They're not. So we decided to go ahead and go into the perspective of the point of view of the oppressed versus the oppressor. So what did that create for us? That created a lot of challenges, because when we started looking for historical artwork, all the paintings and all the drawings were from the point of view of the conquistadors. So the natives or the indigenous people would look a certain way. They would look like animals, to be honest. They weren't very humanized in the artwork. So when we found that challenge to be like, well, how do we represent these people? We know that the Taínos were beautiful and strong people. They were literally described as handsome people that were limber and athletic. So we ended up working with historians and finding whatever kind of eyewitness accounts that described who they were and what they looked like. This is across the board for like the Aztecs as well. And we set out and we decided to create our own artwork. And so a lot of the artwork that we used was done as computer graphics, you know, using technology that would have been like stuff from like Jurassic Park all the way to like right now, right? So we're using the best cutting edge technology to be able to create imagery that is authentic, but that also has an emotional connectivity to the viewer. So even though a lot of this is created by computers, it's got the fingerprints and the input of humans every step of the way to make sure that it has a little impact, even though, you know, again, none of the documents really exist to the level that we needed. So we had to create it.
It was absolutely amazing. The visual storytelling behind everything, spot on. I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible actor. I mean, from his editing to his direction, the camera flow. I mean, it was a sexy, beautiful show that invites you to listen, because you know it's a lot of information and it can be very dry. And it's so important to make it, you know, a lot of the facts are there. That's the power of our history. It's there. It's been written. It was documented during the conquest and after. That's all there. You know, we've experienced a lot of oppression in America, as you saw in that footage. You know, we were experimented on. We were sterilized against our will. Latino women in California were sterilized in the early 1900s. We were lynched as well, not as much as our Black brothers and sisters, but 6,000 of us were lynched, burned alive, shot, massacred, because we had land wealth and we had that kind of power, and they wanted to take it away from us. So there's a lot of photographs also of the lynchings, because they were like trophies to photograph that. So that all that footage does exist side by side by the stuff that Ben created to help us visualize it and see it, and to help the younger people stay engaged.
Yeah, and Ben, you did that amazing. I watched the entire series, and it was great to see. I don't think there's ever been a documentary that's been put out covering what we've been covering so well, on the history of our Latin people. And so we appreciate you, and we say thank you right now. Before I get to the next question, we appreciate what you guys have done through this documentary. And so while doing the documentary, you guys were able to go to many places, many historical places, meet many individuals. And so my question to you guys is, while grounding the series, were there any unexpected discoveries or moments that deeply surprised you or challenged your initial thought or vision?
I mean, I'll say for me, John, it's like just going back into more contemporary history. I'm a Puerto Rican from the East Coast. I grew up in New Jersey and I lived in New York City for many, many years. But like knowing my Puerto Rican history, I thought I knew, but I realized that I didn't know what I didn't know. And so when we started talking to the young lords history part of the chapter, right, so to speak, we started speaking to an author who took us to a museum in New York City. And, you know, when you think of the Young Lords and you think of the Black Panthers and you think of even like the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of incredible social change has come from them. But when you go back to the Young Lords and you think, well, these were 16, 17, 18-year-old kids from the hood in the Bronx or in Spanish Harlem, what did they really contribute that stands the test of time besides protesting? The reality is, when you go to a hospital now, any hospital in the United States, there's something called the Patient Bill of Rights. That came about because of the Young Lords. So that was something that even now, just saying it makes my hair stand up on me. It's like phenomenal that the Young Lords, these young Latinos, were able to change society in such a meaningful and positive way for all of us. So again, that's just one of many, many, many examples. I don't know if John, if you want to share something.
Yeah, going to Teotihuacan, which was an Aztec ancient empire next to the Aztecs. We went into a pyramid that had never been opened. And I was lucky to go in there, and all the artifacts that were inside the pyramid were there was turquoise from Arizona in the Southwest. There was jade from the Mayas. So you learned that we had commerce all up and down from the Incas to the Native Americans of the U.S. So it was an incredible empire. It was a porous border. There was no border. Everybody traded. It was like Grand Central Station down there.
Yeah, and absolutely. And back to what you were saying, Ben, about the young lords, you know, it's great to be able to see these things covered. And certainly as a young person myself, 20 years old, ran for the Board of Education here in Rochester at 18 years old, won at 19. Made history here as the youngest elected official at 19 years old. But it's those people that I was able to pull upon to see that they were able to do it, which means I'm able to do it. And so that's really like through this documentary, as I was watching it, that was at the top of my mind on how this documentary is able to show our young people that we are greater than what statistics says. We are greater than what social media says. We are greater than what the current history says that we are. In the classrooms, and also that we are young people and we are a group of people that are resilient. And that's what you guys were able to show through this documentary. Stephanie, I'll let you ask the next question.
Absolutely. John, I want to tell you a moment that was so specific for me. I remember when I visited, when I went back home to the Dominican Republic and I visited the Cueva de la Maravilla, and I was overwhelmed by the beauty of it. It was my first time there, knowing that I was in a sacred space, that I was connected to my roots, that it was just like, oh my gosh, things you read about, seeing the Taino pictographs and petroglyphs dating back thousands of years. When you were standing in the Templo del Serpiente Emplumada, the temple of the feathered serpent in Mexico, that was an incredibly sacred space. And I saw just a little moment of it, but I was like, oh my gosh, I have to ask John about this, because I remember that feeling of like the privilege of being able to be in that space, the honor, the history that was in it, but also the spiritual significance of the space. So besides making sure you didn't touch the walls, okay, take me through the moment of the privilege of having access to that space, that historical space.
Oh, Stephanie, you put it into words so beautifully what I was feeling. I mean, it was such an honor and a privilege because they didn't let a lot of people down there or anybody. And the walls, the reason you couldn't touch the walls was because they had mercury on them. And if you touched them, you could get poisoned. So I felt so lucky to be able to go down into the pyramid and to witness firsthand the incredible empires that we had, the amazing things that we were able to accomplish that no one talks about, that we never see in movies, that we never see anywhere, that we come from kings and nobles and philosophers and teachers, you know, thousands of years back. I mean, these empires were equal to Rome, equal to Greece. You know, that's what we forget, is that comparison of the power of the people that we came from. And Isaiah was saying, when we see ourselves represented like this, then we know we can go forward. Then we know we can be more than what we were told we could be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is why John is the perfect host for a show like this. You see the passion and the infectious curiosity. Yeah. This is how John lives and breathes every day. And like, what a privilege of a lifetime for not just myself, for our entire crew to be able to experience this and to be on that journey with John is one of the most kind of profound experiences of our lives. And I think you captured it perfect, John. I remember you being affected by that moment and taking it all in. And it's kind of like, we're different after this production. It wasn't like a regular project. We did the gig and then we walk away. It's like, no, this has stuck with us. And from what I'm hearing, John, you tell me, but it stuck with a lot of people who watched it so far. It's been very impactful in a way that I haven't experienced before.
Yeah, and if
props to Ben, because I could have done this by myself. It's impossible. I mean, the heavy lifting that Ben did to get this project on the airwaves, to get it made and to make it so amazing. This guy has so much talent. It's beyond me.
Yeah,
I love that so much, and I just it has impacted a lot of people, and it has given rich information that I know I never would have known. My father is an Army veteran, and the piece that when you talked about how our people have served in every war and that we have been just out here and people not recognizing, like, we've been out here. Just because you haven't heard about us does not mean we haven't been there. So that really, really impacted me, because as I think about our Latino veterans, and we think about the Borinquen years, and just we think about even folks we don't know about, pushing those stories forward is just so absolutely important to our young people. Speaking of young people, Isaiah.
Yes. Yeah, I just want to say, you know, what you guys, you know, planned out to do with this event, I can say personally, with this documentary, I can say personally has really affected me when it comes to my pride as being an Afro-Latino. Growing up, you know, being half African-American and half Puerto Rican, you don't hear much about the history of Puerto Rico. Of course, I know my grandmother lived in Puerto Rico. I know that, you know, when she says a couple of Spanish words, I'm in trouble, but you don't know the exact, you know, you might see a chancla flying at your forehead. It's like, all right. But you're not able to hear about the history. And so because of that, there's not, in my childhood, many times I was prideful about being a Puerto Rican and also being African American, but to be able to see the history of my people and where I came from really did give an opportunity for me to see the history and to also empower myself and pride myself in being a Puerto Rican. And so I wonder, how do you feel that the documentary not only reshapes how history is told, but also how viewers engage with the idea of history itself? In what ways do you hope the audience will question or rethink their understanding of historical events?
Well, I gotta say first, interpreter Denise did a great job when you said chancla, and she.
I saw that too. She was like, "Whoa."
Denise is Peruvian and multi-talented. I just want to put that out there, and she's the best. She is absolutely the best.
I had a flashback. It was like PTSD. I thought my mom was coming.
Also, I just wanted to put out there to respond to Isaiah is that, you know, Johns Hopkins University and Unidos US did a study and found that 87% of Latino contributions to the making of the US are not in history textbooks. And the 13% that is there gets only 5 sentences per. So that's why we had to do this show. I felt like it was our mission to put this on the airwaves, because I feel like when you watch this show, you're changed. I saw this with my cast. I did this play at Washington, D.C., all Latino cast, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Salvadorian, Colombian, Mexican. Everybody was there, and we watched it all together. And the emotions that welled up in all of us, a sense of pride, sadness, rage, outrage more than anything else, that these facts are not in our history textbooks, that they're not in movies, that they're not in the History Channel or Discovery Channel. That's the wrong that we have to undo.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I think it's incredible that, you know, John, I mean, I got to give you credit, because when you went to Broadway with Latin History for Morons, that did not make sense on paper in the Broadway theater community, and yet you turned it into a hit. And now it's a Netflix special. And if it wasn't for that show, that pretty much set the stage for us to be able to tell these stories in kind of a way that's more entertaining and enlightening, educational, but also with a little kind of a finesse and a sexiness that is accessible. So that's really John, once again, like being a pioneer and opening doors and creating new platforms and vehicles that did not even exist before he got on stage.
Yeah.
Let us know when you want to turn this into, you know, children's books and other history books. We would love to welcome you back to Rochester. We have a great literary community here. Por si acaso, you know, I just want to put that out there. Something to work on.
Thank you.
Yeah, so because before we open up to community questions, because I think our time is rolling towards an end, as far as our Q&A between us before we bring in the community questions. I sit on the Board of Education here in Rochester, New York, and what we spoke about a lot today was about the history books and what's put out there in front of our students. And so I have a question, you know, from a commissioner standpoint, a commissioner of education. What strategies or approaches do you believe will be most effective in getting these stories into schools and local communities to spark meaningful conversations and understanding?
Well, I feel like teachers are already telling me what they're using it is, giving it as homework. You know, this pbs.org is free. You can go on there and see the show. You can use it as a learning device. You know, you can do a lesson plan alongside of it. Unidos US is doing a lesson plan, and we're going to try to collaborate with them to do it exactly on our show, so that you can get that information and use it to get grades.
Yeah.
PBS also has access to about 10 to 11,000 public schools, so that's another great way of rolling this into classrooms. We hope to do a second season, a third, and go more granular and go deeper into the history, because there's so much more that we didn't even tap into. We want to go back in there and just keep creating a whole encyclopedia on the air for PBS.
Yeah. And just to add to that, Commissioner Isaiah, we actually worked with PBS Learning Media, and we actually created an entire curriculum around this entire documentary that's available for schools. And as John mentioned, it's currently already available to 10 to 11,000 schools. We're going to do a big kind of a PR campaign to roll it out, because a lot of teachers want access to it. And once you go to the website, PBS Learning Media, and you look up American Historia, you literally click, you download all the lesson plans, and there you have all that you need for you to be able to teach this in the classroom. So we want it to be in 100,000 schools eventually. Right now it's 10,000, and we're really happy about that. But why not 100,000? Why not 200,000? So that's really one of the next goals that we'll have. And maybe we'll do it around the announcement, God willing, of season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like our partnership won't be ending here, because I'll definitely be looking into that, seeing how we can bring it here into Rochester, New York. We have a large population of Latinx students also. And so we want to be able to teach them who they are and the culture that they're coming from. And so thank you guys for doing stuff like this, because it's amazing work. And so we continue to do it, because this is timeless. This doesn't end just after the documentary and after we have this conversation. This is going to inspire many other young people to last for generations, today, tomorrow, next week, next month. So thank you guys, 10 years from now, 50 years from now. But thank you guys, for doing this documentary.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. Appreciate that.
Yes, amazing. And I also want to add, thank you for having that intersectionality story within the documentary as well. I think that's an important piece, is that it is definitely Latino forward facing, as it should be, but it also weaves why we need to be united as a community together when we're talking about underrepresented communities. Together there is more power.
Absolutely.
Each of our communities has a different power that we can bring, a different light. But when we bring all of that light together, woo, pa'lante, you can't shut us down. You can't shut us down.
That's right.
So we're gonna move into some audience questions here. And we're going to start off with, as a Cubano here in Rochester, who is currently starting our city's first Latin American film series, one of the biggest issues has been getting some of the cultural institutions here to tell our stories. How have the two of you been able to get institutions to tell our stories? And maybe a little bit of advice locally, where can we start?
Well, I'll say for the film, John, we got the incredible support of Latino Public Broadcasting. Yeah. And that was part of their mandate, was to tell stories like this. But then you look at other foundations like Ford Foundation, which also put money into our film, your local PBS station. So I would say, believe it or not, there are organizations that are literally looking for the projects that you have. A few years ago, like Jeff Bezos' wife ended up giving away like billions of dollars. And she was literally calling places like Ballet Hispanico and just saying, I have $20 million for you. So I would just say, like, don't give up. Like, we really had to pound a lot of pavement and knock on a lot of doors. This wasn't easy, and it shouldn't be easy, but it's definitely possible. So I would just encourage them to dig deeper.
Yeah, I wish it was easier, because we're such a financial force in America. We give more than what we get. We have a buying power of $3.4 trillion in the US, but we don't get much of it back. I've been in the industry for 4 decades. That's a long ass time. Pardon my
un niño, John.
Yeah. Comporto como, I act like a child, but yeah.
He was a child star. He was a child star when he started.
Yeah.
It's part of his charm.
Yeah. But thank you guys. Thank you for helping my vanity. Yeah, it's a difficult task, getting Latin content out there. But Latin content is so important. It's what we want. Netflix and Nielsen did a study and found that Latinos go to Latin content. Want Latin stars, want Latin stories, and they go to it. So we're out there. The audience is out there. We just have to create the spaces for them to happen. And you have to be creative. You have to be resilient. You have to persevere. That's the secret weapon, perseverance. You got to keep going and you never stop. You never stop. And then things happen. And then, have setbacks and then you go back forward. But, luckily, digital revolution created an egalitarian world where we can put our content out there in the social media and it gets millions of views and millions of hits. And I see tons of people doing Latino history skits, little imitations of our PBS show. And it's wonderful, man, because they're going in there and they're taking the tools and making it better and richer. It's amazing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Isaiah has the next question.
Yes. So we have some more questions from our community members. And one of those questions is, how can we continue to learn more of our Latino history? Where should we start? And so how does community members outside of the documentary, they start in the documentary and it sparks an interest for them to continue studying? How do you guys think that they should continue to learn more of their history?
Well, I'm so glad that they're still hungry. I want you all to be hungry because the more you learn, the more empowered you get, and the less anybody can push you around because you know who you are and what you stand for. There's so many great books. Edward Galeano's Open Veins of Latin America is my favorite because it's condensed. It's 300 pages of all our history up to now. So it tells you, what we've been suffering, exploitation in our countries and destroyed democracies and all that, but also how much gold was taken from us. 500,000 tons of gold and twice as much silver was taken from us. That's how Europe built these great empires, and in France and in England. That was our money. That was our gold. I want my reparations someday. But
I mean, they was also eating the gold, so that was also a problem for them.
Yeah. Exactly. There's also John is part of an incredible organization that is helping to put together the first ever Smithsonian Latino Museum. It's called the American Latino Museum. And so if people want to support that, there's an organization called the Friends of the American Latino Museum. And similar to how the African American Museum was built on the mall, we want our museum to be built on the mall. So if you want to get involved in a more pro-social active way, that's something you can do. Friends of the American Latino Museum.
Yeah,
and we got it through the Senate and the House, a bipartisan bill to let our museum exist. What we just have to fight for is a place in the mall. We don't want to be miles away because it sets the precedent that we're still second-class citizens. But this museum is going to contain all this information, all these facts. So there can't be any deniers, any Latino history deniers.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that. When it opens up, I'll definitely be there. That sounds amazing, and I'd love to support it becoming a thing also.
We'll be there. We're gonna show up with our flags, with our food, with our kids, con todo. We're gonna show up with everything. We're gonna make a parranda.
Con el otro, con el primo, la tía.
Con la tía, con el primo hermano, con la abuelita.
Fulano.
Especially abuelita. Oh, fulano. I mean, he gotta be there.
Always gotta be.
We have a lot of filmmakers here in Rochester, inspiring up and coming folks. We have an audience question. Would love to hear about how do you get something like this going? Not just we had a meeting and we talked about it. Like, what are those key steps as we're thinking about this kind of work and folks? How do we make this happen?
Believe that it needs to happen. That's the first thing. Because if you don't believe it and you don't wholeheartedly believe that it's a possibility, then how would anybody else jump on board? So it starts with that belief in yourself and the project. John was on the road. I was lucky enough to spend some time shooting a documentary of the making of Latin history, so we would have incredible conversations, and it was great. And if it stayed in those conversations and never got to the point of being a treatment and something written, and then going in and asking John to shoot a sizzle reel with us in New York City in 2016, by the way, John, it's been 8 years since we shot that in December, probably this week. It was around December 15th, 2016 that we shot it, and we did it with no money. We paid for it ourselves. So a lot of times you have to invest in yourself, in your own belief, in your own vision before others will join you. And then you got to play the role, and you also have to see what other people have done on their journey. So if you want to do documentaries like a certain person, or if you want to make movies, understanding their trajectory and their journey, even though your journey is different, will give you a lot of clues on how to get there faster. So you got to find like-minded people, surround yourself with people who believe in your dream, and get there together. So, and then what John said, persevere, do not give up. That's the biggest secret of all, is just don't give up.
Yeah. Never give
I
up.
love that. Lo que está para ti es para ti. Lo que no está para ti, no está para ti. I mean, sometimes you got to break it down just like that. Like your moment will come.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you know, we're coming on about our last 5 minutes, and so some people want to know, John and Ben, outside of this project, what's next for you? This was such a welcome addition to the public television schedule. Do you have any other projects that you are working on, or perhaps just daydreaming about? They want to know what you guys have coming up next.
I got an amazing movie coming out March 21st that is winning awards all around the world.
Wow.
And it stars 2 Latinos, so it's a big deal. Barbara Ferreira, who's Brazilian, and myself were the 2 leads. And it's you know, a true story of the director who had a bad relationship with her dad, you know, separated, and then later in life wanted to get in touch with him, uses Facebook and gets in contact with the wrong dad. But then they meet, and he ends up being a better dad than her real dad. So I hope you'll all support that. It's going to come out to theaters March 21st, New York, LA, and Austin, Texas, and then platform.
Yeah, it's called Bob Trevino Likes It.
Oh, yeah.
It's phenomenal. It won South by Southwest. It's winning every award that it gets involved. It wins. We also have season 2 of Leguizamo Does America coming out in April. So we're visiting incredible cities around the country like we did in season 1. That's for Peacock and MSNBC. In about 10 minutes, I have a pitch meeting about doing another making of a Broadway show documentary. So I'm hoping that'll be on PBS. But mostly we're really excited about keeping the ball rolling with American Historia, with the season 2 and beyond. And then John and I are working on a feature film, and John is always working on a million things. And yeah, we're keeping pushing. We don't give up.
Yeah, and you guys should come by Rochester as you're going to the cities in America. We got some rich history.
Oh yeah, we got to go there. We got to.
Yes. Don't forget about us. Come over here. We'll love to have you.
Don't forget you.
All right. Yeah, make sure. Send me an email or something. I'll definitely come and set this up. You know,
take you all to the delicious places we have here in town.
Yes, we have some places here. Yes.
Mofongo, empanadas, sancocho, chuleta, whatever you want, we got it here.
Yeah, but we want to thank you, Ben and John, for coming along, and thank you guys also for the amazing work that you guys did with this documentary. We hope that we were able to give an insightful conversation for the people who are viewing, and I also hope that I was able to encourage you guys for the impact that you guys are putting on the younger generation, because that's who I know, you know, as a younger person, but I'm sure everybody who's watched this documentary. And so we appreciate you guys. We thank you guys for coming on. Stephanie, you have anything?
Coming from a young elder, porque yo no soy una viejita quite yet, but I'm not quite young. I just want to say thank you so much for giving me something that I can show my little son, my little Afro-Latino son, that he can watch and we can connect with. He is 8 years old. And these are the kinds of stories that I consistently want to expose him to, so that he understands that our stories as people do not begin from a place of trauma. It comes from a place of triumph. And it comes from a place of resilience, and that we have to be very conscious of how we intake our own stories, and be even more conscious of who is sharing our stories and who is telling it. So Ben, John, you know, from the bottom of my little Dominican heart, mira, muchas gracias por todo. This has profoundly impacted me in ways that I just never knew, and I'm excited to keep sharing this. And, you know, like Isaiah said, this is not going to be the first time that we tell people about American Historia, because it has to be told. More importantly, we have to be the ones telling our own stories. So thank you for your work, and thank you, Isaiah, for being our co-moderator, and Denise, who love and adore Peruana. Shout out to all the Peruvians and Dominicans and Puerto Ricans and Colombians and everybody out here who joined us here today. We just want to thank you so much for the work. Continue doing it, and we're here to support, and we welcome you to Rochester anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah, John and Ben, do you guys have any last statements before we end this?
Yeah, well, thank you. We do it because of you and for people like yourselves, and to hear how it impacted you is the feedback that warms my heart and keeps me going. So thank you for sharing your stories about how you felt about it.
Thank you. Exactly. We are not victims. We are victors. So thank you.
A la
Thank you
victoria
guys so
siempre.
much. Thank you guys so much.
All
And
right.
thank you for everybody who's watching.
Thank
All right.
you. And now, Chris.
Hey, John, Ben, thank you for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. And Stephanie and Isaiah, y'all are superstars.
They are. Yeah.
We're going to do this again because y'all are amazing. And thank you so much. This is one of the reasons why I moved to Rochester, because this community is rich of talent and leaders of tomorrow. And I'm excited to see you all moderating this conversation. Ben, I love you, man. Thank you for coming.
I love Ben.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for all the support over the years, Chris. I know you've heard me dreaming many, many times in different events. So thank you for supporting.
I am so proud of you. And John, it's just good to talk with you again and to be able to see the work that you're doing. And so proud of both of you for being leaders in our communities. For the audience that's still on, there is a survey coming to you because we want to do more of these events, but we got to hear back from you how we can do it better. For those of you who are on and maybe you got some folks who you want to see this, I'm having a team put this on YouTube so that it could be accessible. And I just want you to know that we're going to have more conversations like this. I hope maybe Ben and John might even come to Rochester one day, but we'll find other folks to bring too. So just stay connected with us. If you got comments from me, feel free to share what you think on social media using hashtag WXXI CEO. We're here to bring people together. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you next time. Ben, good luck with your pitch. Let me know how I can help. I think I know who you're talking to. Good luck.
Thank you, buddy. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.